Welcome to Ed Talk with Mary. Today we have Eric Sheninger, who is really an honor to host. And he's the most sought speaker and innovative leader and award-winning principal. So it's really a pleasure having you.
Oh, it's my honor to be here, Mary.
As we are all, as schools and administrations and teachers, we are planning ahead. But before we plan ahead, maybe we need to do some type of assessment and see what is the new way of schooling or new learning that will take place. Could you give us some hint? What is it that we need to think about before we start planning and digging deeper?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question because if we go back to over a year and a half ago and really look at the onset of the pandemic, no one was prepared. And it doesn't matter where you were across the world. And that's not a negative. We had never really trained teachers and administrators for this transition to remote learning, hybrid learning, and just all of these different elements, managing breakout rooms, engaging parents. And, as we went through the early parts of the pandemic, what we learned was educators were flying and building the plane at the same time. And what we learned was that a virus could not stop their commitment to kids. And with all of the challenges, some really important lessons and opportunities materialized. And I think that is sort of a starting point as we look to next year and beyond is we can't forget all of the adversity that was overcome and resulting in resilient educators. But if we really look at those lessons, such as thinking about the role of personalization to create more equitable learning environments, the fact that we now know that we need high quality Wi-Fi to keep learning going, but with Wi-Fi, thinking about the move to blended pedagogies or how teachers use time. So as we go forward, I think that the biggest lesson as we look to plan is really keeping a focus on how we use our time with our kids and moving to more personalized approaches to ensure equitable learning for kids, but also just thinking about, if we do not, if we forget those lessons learned, then that opportunity that was here for us is just a missed one. So as we go forward, really thinking about, what are those changes that we were forced into for many of us that are going to have validity for kids going forward.
I believe even the kids changed. The kids that were there before pandemic, the ones we were teaching in our classrooms, are now grown up into more technical, digital-oriented children who know how to manage information, download, work on it. So as if they also grew in their skills. And the current book that you have, we're all looking forward to have our copies to read and to skim through. Disruptive thinking, it's also preparing children for the future. So what can we do as maybe school administrators or teachers to target more the skills of the children? And what is it that our kids need now after this lost season of chaos maybe, or the things that were imposed? But now that we went through, we experimented, we tried, we also got reflection from parents, we involved parents in our learning. What is it that we can do now for our learners? Who are our new learners?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I want to kind of preface it with this. Good teaching is good teaching, learning is learning, and leadership is leadership. Those three things have not changed. What has changed is the environment in which we teach, the environment in which we learn, and the environment in which we lead. So this environment has really influenced our learners in some really amazing ways. And when we talk about, the benefits, really looking at these critical competencies that we want our kids to have to be successful now and in the future, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, not new. But what are some more evolving ones? Time management, remote collaboration, self regulation, and just looking at, and empathy. So as we look at all this, as we go forward and think about what we can do, the best message I can convey is, don't make it harder than it is. We have seen disruptive change from the pandemic, but we saw that prior to the pandemic with advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, automation. Disruption is here to stay. So, what can we do in our classrooms, our schools, and our countries? Two things: empower our kids to think and get our kids to apply their thinking in relevant and meaningful ways. But in order to help all kids be successful, we can't have all kids doing the same thing the same way. The pandemic showed us that traditional schooling didn't work for some kids. My son stayed home this whole year as a remote learner and did just as well, if not better, than when he was in school. But what did he get to do? He took naps between classes. He played Minecraft, and my son's going to be a grade 11 student. But he was able to really work on managing his time and really be able to regulate his own behavior so that he could hold himself accountable. So I think as teachers, leaders, as parents, we have to, take that critical lens to our culture. And just because we were taught that way or led that way doesn't mean it's in the best interests of those who we serve, which are our students. If we want to give them a really solid foundation for when they go from one grade level to the next, or if they go to college and careers, get them to think, apply that thinking. And what is disruptive thinking? Replacing conventional ideas with innovative solutions to problems. And that's what the world needs.
I believe that really the pandemic forced us maybe into something, but it was already needed to be done, especially in Lebanon. I can say after your visit, I had attended your training, and really already 2-3 years ago, it was already shedding light on a lot of things that we could have started, and some schools already started, but it needs follow up. And in education, we cannot do something and stop and then just say this is it done. And as we are planning ahead, if we have our learners in our minds, then it would make that we are preparing lessons to cater their needs. And it's not us, just our plans. Maybe that needs also to update our plans, our methodologies, the project-based learning to be more involved, that so that we're empowering kids for their future. Because as you said, we're future-proofing our kids. Because at the end, the traditional education stopped being preparing them for the workforce. It's about preparing them for the life and overall as successful individuals and citizens. I see also that a lot of trainings are around the world being given by us, by you, to a lot of organizations, schools. And I know how you were leading change of a school from a traditional school into really globally recognized school. So if you have something to give, some tips maybe to school administrators who are going to put these strategic plans, what are some few tips that they need to take into consideration so that they are setting the tone for their teachers, for their students, and for their parents?
Yeah, it's really important. And you think about just the change process. Nobody likes change. The only group that likes change at scale are wet babies that need their diapers removed. That's about it. As we think about what leaders can do, a school administrator is one person. They're not the ones that are actually going and implementing the changes in the classroom, but everyone needs to get on the same page. So administrators need to help create a shared vision, shared expectations, and shared language. Leadership is not about telling people what to do, it's taking them where they need to be. And I think that, if you're really looking to initiate change, and this holds true for administrators, teachers, or parents, start with these three questions. Why are we doing the things we're doing this way? Why do we do it this way? Number one, how might we do it better? And what will tell us if we're actually successful? And I think those three questions, we're so entrenched on that's the way we've always done it. Or, well, you know
Done
what?
it.
We have to have those really high test scores for our learners. And so, I think challenging that status quo. So, starting with that common vision, common language, common expectations, connecting the sort of reason to change with research and examples. One thing that I take a lot of pride in is being able to show how teachers and administrators have not only changed, but what it actually looks like and how it represents a fundamental improvement over what we've done in the past. And I guess my final piece of advice for administrators is, you get what you model. Don't ask others to do what you're not willing to do or have not done yourself. And people want to know that, a leader is not just a talking head, someone that's just going to throw out ideas without rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty. So, in essence, you are being a co-teacher, a co-leader, a co-collaborator, to really help to create the culture. And that's the key. If people value the change, if they understand why we're doing this and how it's going to represent a fundamental improvement and what will tell them if they've been good at it, then the leader gets to just take a step back and bask in the glory of their teachers, their students, and their community members. So, nothing about leadership is easy. The other day I was working with our top leaders here in one of our states in America, and they were a difficult group to work with. Working with adults is harder than working with kids. But again, it really comes down to my message to them was you are one person. How will you empower others to carry the baton, to take those risks, to truly be innovative, to question what they do in order to create a new normal?
I think it is doable with team effort. And many times we see that the schools are trying something, the teachers are on another page, and the parents have other concerns, and the students are still on another frequency. So when we're putting efforts together with effective communication and involving, like you said, in the shared vision as a community, I think then education and new ways of preparing our learners for their future would be a bit easier task compared to that all the load. So at the end, I would like to say that, for example, from now to 10 years, how do you think a school would look like for a parent who is, for example, looking for a school for their child? If I want to see a school, what are some indicators of a successful school, a school that prepares my child for the future? What can people see, some target, some indicators, some points that if they find these points in a school, they would know that this is a school that prepares their child for the future?
Yeah, and I think my crystal ball is in the workshop right now getting fixed. But if it was working, I think, when we look to the future, it's how do we move to a more competency-based system where we're not focused on just progression in the linear format from grade level to grade level, but when kids demonstrate competency, they can move more quickly or get the help that they need. So I think school is going to be a much more sort of what's the word I'm looking for? A much more interconnected experience that might consist of your traditional brick and mortar schoolroom instruction, but also learning in the cloud, learning virtually. I think the key is the ability to put kids on different paths that represent their individual strengths and also their areas of needed growth in order to help get them to where they want to be. For so long, since the late 1800s, early 1900s, education has been a linear process. All kids are put on the same path, expected to do the same thing, take the same tests. But what we know is just like with adults, our kids learn differently. I don't see kids as learning disabled. I see them that they learn differently. And if we put them into that same box or that same path, we're never going to be able to create the next generation of thinkers, doers, inventors, and creators. I would love to see a system that is more choice. I'd love to see full year school where we're taking maybe some more extended breaks, but again, so we keep that continuity. I'd love to see where, different institutions could have a completely virtual that we're doing here in America that we've learned from the pandemic. So school systems are creating their own virtual option for those kids that want that. So choice, path, allowing kids to work at their own pace. If learning is the goal within reason, why are we so concerned with you got to get this test done in this time? So I think is what I just described was a personalized experience. And when we think about all kids getting what they need, when and where they need it, that is where I hope schools are in 10 years, but it's only going to be a reality if parents, guardians, administrators, and teachers work together to be honest about aspects of education that we need to change in order to better prepare kids for their future. We don't want to prepare kids for something. We don't know what that something is. We need to prepare them for anything.
So true, and especially it's like a dream come true to any parent who really wants the best of opportunities, maybe, and learning experiences. And parents, they want to just have a school that believes in the capabilities of their children, so that they can believe that they can dream, they can achieve, and they can really make the future a better place. So thank you so much for all your insight, and I'm sure we will continue your page, your Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, and we will continue to get some tips and all the documents that you share there, because really they are practical and they are feasible, doable activities that really encourage teachers to have insights and ready-made materials sometimes to guide their work. And looking forward to read your book as well. Now we can also mention how can people order your book, so that we can, as we're planning ahead, to can have insight and use it in our lives.
Great question. Well, Disruptive Thinking in Our Classrooms is available on Amazon in print, but it's also now in a digital version, so you can get it instantaneously. Wow. So just go to Amazon, type in Disruptive Thinking in Our Classrooms or my name, and it will pop up. And there's also, I just got done a study guide. So if anyone emails me, and I am not a hard person to get a hold of, I can get that study guide into your hands.
Great. Looking forward, as schools, as parents, as administrators, really, it will be a guide that will help us through the pandemic, the way that future schools will look like. Thank you so much, and really appreciate all that you do for the sake of education, all the trainings, or the workshops, all the conferences, and education is dynamic. So we will continue to follow, we will continue to learn, and we will use education to make the world a better place. Thank you so much. And really, it was a pleasure hosting you and ongoingly being ready to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to all the amazing educators in Lebanon and beyond for all that you've been able to do to help kids during this very difficult time. You all are the true heroes.
Thank you.